Hi, this is Dan Timmer. Welcome to Getting the Most Out of Your BSS, OSS, and Tech Support Integration. We'll go ahead and get started in another minute or two. We'll go ahead and get started now. Thanks for joining us for our panel discussion on BSS, OSS, and Tech Support Integrations. We're looking forward to an interactive session today, which will include a few poll questions and a chance to ask the panelists questions. You can submit your questions via the top of the console in the Q&A section. I'll be back later to help with the open Q&A session, but I'll hand it off to today's moderator, Bob Butchko. Bob?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Like you mentioned, we're going to be discussing how integrations between specifically your BSS OSS and your technical support team, whether that's internal or outsourced to another team, how it can make your technical support more efficient on the back end and more effective on the customer end. So we've got a panel of experts in this area on all sides of the house. So I'd like to welcome Amber Wilson with VTEL, Richard Petoniak with Waitsfield and Champlain Valley Telecom, Seth Baker with NISC, and Olivia Grimstead with NRTC. So thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today and sharing your knowledge on this topic. I don't want to spend too much time before we delve in and really start talking with you, but before we get started, I know we're kind of bouncing back and forth, but Dan, I'm going to turn it back over to you to lead the audience in a few poll questions. We really want to get a little information from you to frame out this discussion. So Dan, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. We've got 3 poll questions here that we'll get started, and then we'll go back in and get going on the panel discussion here. So our first question, and we'll have this pop up so you'll be able to answer it here. Which BSS OSS do you currently use? We'll give you a minute or two to submit your responses here. And here we're just trying to get a sense for who's on and what your integrations would be with here today. So looks like there's still votes coming in. All right, we've got most of the votes coming in on this. So JB, you can go ahead and share the results on that. I think we're good. Looks like we have a pretty good mix of majority are on NISC, and then shortly followed by Innovative, MACC, and Not Sure and Sonar. So kind of all areas represented on that so far. Next question we got. How do you handle your technical support today? So kind of the options there, you handle it fully in-house, fully outsourced, or a hybrid environment where it's a mix of in-house and outsourced. So often maybe a case of maybe weekends after hours might be outsourced. So, and then there might be some not sure, so just in case. All right. Looks like we've got majority of the votes in on that. Almost 3/4 of responses were a hybrid environment. So not a huge surprise there. Just under a quarter fully in-house, and then we got fully outsourced at 5%. So got one last question for you. How would you describe your current tech support and BSS OSS integration maturity? So the first one there, no integration. You have manual workflows. Basic subscriber info is synced only. Third, partial ticketing, workflow automation. Fourth option there, highly integrated, so near real-time data available. And then the last one, not sure. So we'll give you a little longer here to answer this one, a little bit more complex.
Yeah, it's putting people on the spot to kind of identify
Right.
this, put it into a bucket real time here. It's not an easy distinction to make.
Okay. So the results on this, just over 40% have a partial ticketing workflow automation. That makes a lot of sense there. Next, highest 23% is highly integrated, so near real time. Good to hear that. And then tied at 9% are both the no integrations and the basic subscriber info only. And then we have just under 20%, not quite sure exactly what they're, how far they're integrated. So, all right, I think that gives the panel a good sense for the participants joining here today. So that wraps up our poll questions. Bob, I'm going to hand it back over to you to get
Sure.
talk with the panel and our experts here today. So thank you.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, so I think what we saw there is, not too far outside of the what we expected. A lot of hybrid solutions out there, a range of systems that you all are using, and a range of integrations that you have available. I was really surprised that there weren't more not sures on the integration. I love that we have people on here that are that in sync with what you're doing today. If you're not sure, that's totally fine. I'm not casting any aspersions. But yeah, a wide range. And I think that what we're going to talk about here today will really resonate with all of you, because we're really here to talk about how capabilities can really have the impact on your processes, on your customer experience, and how not only are those capabilities not equal across all integrations, but they should be evolving over time as well. So let's start off and talk a little bit about kind of a baseline here. What does good really look like? What makes for a good integration? So, Olivia, I'm going to start off with you. And when people hear that you're integrated with various systems, a lot of times, people, especially the way that it's presented sometimes on websites and in places, they say we have an integration, and it's like a box that's checked, and they assume you're done. So, can you walk us through kind of how the integration and how you and the NISC team have worked together to evolve this over time, and why it's not just a checkbox in your mind?
Yeah, sure. So integration isn't a static yes or no. It's kind of defines, and it's more of a two-way communication. So we want to improve efficiencies. So we want to define what you're trying to get from your integration or try to mimic in the process. We don't want to eliminate something that is already in place today. When we have been working with NISC a few years ago, with our first integration, we couldn't close tickets, for example. And after speaking with some of our members, I've heard that they had dedicated resources to just close our tickets on our end. So that was kind of painful to hear. So we kind of worked on improving the integration to be able to close tickets, to accomplish everything that our members needed, to mimic what they do directly in NISC.
And I mean, that's probably especially important in those hybrid environments. You want to, like you were saying, kind of mimic what they do in-house as much as possible. So I imagine that helped you kind of mirror that process a lot better once you had that in place.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Olivia. Seth, to kind of follow that up, can you talk a little bit about different platforms? I know NISC offers a few different platforms. How does that impact what's possible with your integrations?
Yeah, so the difference in our applications, excuse me. And the two being, let me just call them out, is that we have our iView and then we have our iView Connect. And so with iView Connect, we've just got the opportunity to create some APIs through RESTful, excuse me, through RESTful APIs to better get the data between the systems so that we can perform the processes as quickly as possible. With iView, yeah, there was a growth period with iView, with just trying to get more and more and more into it so that we could be as seamless as possible. I like the iView solution in that it feels very well-rounded. All aspects feel like they're covered, and the NRTC can. You guys are such a almost direct extension of our members, right? Assisting with the services for support. So for iView, I feel like the difference is that we've got a lot of maturity on the iView side. And then with iView Connect, we're working with Olivia, actively working with Olivia to get that up off the ground and to match and improve even what we've done in our iView solutions. But it's really the approach of the iView Connect being more HTML based, and then versus iView. I think a big win on the APIs was building a solution. I'm working with NRTC to build a solution where you didn't have to VPN in a remote desktop, some of the older methods to even access the system. And so, yeah, I'm probably favoring the iView side. My history is more with iView, and so I'm very partial to it. But I'm working a lot more on the iView Connect side. So they each have their uniqueness. I feel like with the iView Connect, we can move a lot quicker to get things developed.
Excellent. And Richard, did we lose you, or we may have lost Richard? Okay. Well, I was going to see, because Richard, I know, has worked with both of you for a long time, and we really kind of wanted to get his perspective on how things have evolved over time. So we'll come back to that. Hopefully he'll be rejoining us here in a second. But kind of moving on from that then, Amber, I know you're a little newer to this ecosystem with these two providers. So can you kind of talk a little bit about what changed operationally when you gained access to some of these features like full ticket visibility, closure capabilities, versus what you had previously?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you. So yes, newer to NRTC, not new to NISC, 25 plus years there. So so some of the things that changed with us when we were able to join with NRTC was that they had greater visibility into our systems. So not just into NISC and Calix, which we're mostly Calix shop now for CPE, but also they were able to see into some of our homegrown systems. So, you know, we found with our prior provider, they would spend some time troubleshooting a Wi-Fi connection when in fact the whole ONT was down because they couldn't see the ONT. You know, that's a whole lot of time wasted. So NRTC can see that the ONT is down, so they troubleshoot the ONT as opposed to the Wi-Fi connection. So I mean, that definitely improved operationally. One of the other places that was improved as well was that back and forth visibility. So customer calls in, they place a trouble ticket with NRTC, NRTC escalates it to us if they can't resolve it, you know, for whatever reason. Our techs, in-house techs too, are taking a look at it, and they can see a couple of things to troubleshoot. So they call the customer back, and for whatever reason, the customer's not available. So they put their notes on the ticket. Well, then the customer is going to call back. What we were seeing with our prior provider was that they would start from ground zero again and troubleshoot right from the get-go because they weren't seeing the notes that our tier 2 folks had put on the ticket. Now that we have that back and forth visibility, the NRTC tech is seeing those notes that our tier 2 folks have put on, and they're starting from that step in the process as opposed to starting from ground zero again. So that's definitely helped with that whole customer experience piece of that. The other piece of great visibility is that they can see not just the customer's address, but also the systems that are serving the customer. So if we have, say, 2 customers call in from Wallingford with an outage, and 2 customers call in from Tinmouth with an outage, and 2 customers call in from Ira with an outage, those might just be 2 separate systems, or 2, 3 separate 2-ticket issues to our prior provider. But NRTC can see, oh wait, those are all served from the same central office. So wait, that might be an outage situation that we need to escalate and bring folks on board with. So having that extra layer of visibility has definitely improved that whole operation process completely.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that sounds like it really improved the customer experience. I mean, when you were saying that, I was kind of thinking back to, sometimes you go into systems online or whatever, you have to enter your information, and then you get to the next step, you got to enter it all in again, and it feels like you're starting over from scratch. That kind of experience is just, it leaves such a negative impression. So I'm sure that made a huge impact. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Richard, yeah, thank you. And I apologize. I meant new to the integration. I shouldn't have implied you were new to both of these folks. But yeah, so Richard, we lost you for a minute there, but we're going to backtrack. No, that's okay. That's okay.
My internet connection went down.
Oh no.
It went dark here. So I won't tell you who my provider is, but it's not us.
Oh.
No one on this call. No one on this call.
Well, I mean, it was obviously either you're on a hotspot or it was restored quickly. So
it came back up. Yeah, that's a little perfect timing, right?
Yeah. Yep, it worked out well. Yeah, so kind of backtracking a little bit, we were talking about the evolution, and I know that you've been along for the ride, kind of as this integration between NISC and NRTC's technical support team has evolved over time. Can you talk a little bit, from your perspective about what stood out most whenever you moved into that more kind of integrated workflow over time?
Well, I think, Amber mentioned a couple of talking points that absolutely we were the benefactor of. We saw much improved back and forth visibility on what the NRTC technicians had done, and vice versa. It just makes so much sense that everybody be able to see a single system, and being able to see everything that's been done, so you're not starting from scratch. That certainly improves the customer experience, but it also improves the average talk time. When your average talk time, can exceed 10 minutes on an average call, if you can knock a few minutes off of that, it's huge. It's huge, as from a lot of different standpoints. But the most important to me is the customer impact. It's certainly cheaper. You're paying someone less time to handle that call overall. When you average it out over the year, financially it makes sense. But from the customer experience side, it's huge. If they can get a resolution much quicker, and if they can't get a resolution, they know that call is getting escalated quicker to a local technician that can help.
Awesome. So you have seen that kind of improvement in talk times?
Yeah,
and
we sure have.
Kind of marked like obvious, like the before and after you kind of put the integration in place that you saw?
Yeah, we're seeing, the NRTC call stats that Olivia and her team share with us. We're seeing a 2 to 3 minute drop in the average call, which is a big deal. That's real savings. But again, the impact on the customer is just it's great. Nobody likes having to call tech support. It's a reality. When you need help, you need help. But if you can make that experience as easy and frankly as quick as possible, people really appreciate it. And people really appreciate the live person too. AI is wonderful. There's so many different tools that help automate things, and for some folks that's really where it's at. And we're working to make using some of NISC's tools, make that available to our customers. But most of our customers really like that personal contact. They like that they can reach out to somebody and reach somebody, here and live, not a robot.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely can have a lot of impact. I know there's some ways that all these teams are using AI today, but I agree. I mean, it's just so much more impactful whenever it's a real person on the other end.
And speaking of, the real person, it's much easier to coach an agent You know, if somebody makes a mistake, which mistakes happen, people are in training sometimes, and maybe sometimes they don't have a lot of experience troubleshooting a certain issue. But the resources are there to help coach that agent, you know, and see specifically what was done. NRTC has done a really great job, certainly since our integration, with consistency of notes. I think that's really important as a tech support supervisor, to be able to go back if something does happen to get escalated to me. I can go back and see step by step what the technician did. And that integration is really, really important. You know, previously it was sort of a, you know, a mishmash. Some technicians were, you know, putting in great notes. Others were putting in abbreviations that nobody understood. So the consistency that NRTC has created in their trouble ticketing and call recording has been really great for us.
Yeah, so I mean, it sounds like it's a mixture of, I'm going a little bit off script here, but it sounds like it's a mixture of, you know, both on the process side and on the capability side. So some of the things, just to kind of recap to this point, feel free to hit anything I missed on. So it sounds like, you know, things like the ability to close tickets, the ability to see those notes both ways are huge. And, you know, Seth, your team, Olivia's team, work together to kind of make that happen. But the processes that go around that are equally as important. So, you know, working together to make sure there's consistency across all the processes, and they're taking full advantage of those capabilities is every bit as important too. So thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So I guess let's talk about how that can impact the agent performance. So Olivia, from your perspective as a technical support provider, you've got that full ticket life cycle. What impact does that have on your agent's performance?
So the agents, when we first integrated, they loved it. It gives them that real-time access. It doesn't allow that dead air while answering the phone, that kind of awkward silence of while you're trying to look a customer up through a VPN to get to iView Direct specifically. It helps eliminate that dead air while looking a customer up. They can start troubleshooting and knowing what services they have right at the beginning of the call. And yeah, I mean, it helps decrease their talk time, which that's less time the customer has to spend on the phone. So I think they enjoyed that as well. But mainly, yeah, I mean, it gives them additional visibility and that confidence to talk to the customer. So if a customer called in a couple of days ago, they can read the notes from the technical support agent or the field tech to know what exactly happened.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so better conversations, fewer transfers, fewer callbacks needed. Ultimately, those faster resolutions that Richard was talking about and Amber was talking about just a little bit ago. All right, great. Well, Seth, you know, we've kind of, you know, hit upon kind of the customer side of things. Let's hit the system side a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the back-end improvements you and your team have made that have made all these workflow and efficiency improvements possible?
Yes, and I will refrain from getting in the weeds of the actual tech talk about it. But yeah, just the progression of where we come, like Olivia mentioned, VPN into a network, or flat file reports that would run nightly. All of that just feels past tense, right? And so making it as real time as possible. I know that's been said a couple times here. That is the goal, is to make these APIs as real time as possible. But through the collaboration, because this is a big part of the improvements, like the life of these APIs, is our relationship with NRTC, right? Our constant work with Olivia. Like I said, I was just checking emails yesterday about some stuff that we're trying to get sorted out. So that relationship is so important to get these APIs, our member customer needs established, and for us to work together to then get them resolved and find solutions. Another one is at NISC, we also have an awesome support structure. So we have Chris Fries, He's not on this call, but he's our main implementer for our APIs, works with Olivia a ton. Having that knowledge base internally at NIC is very important. I rely on him a ton. So that's another thing that's just helped the improvement of these APIs is our resources internally. And then the iterative improvements that we've made, we keep making those. So it's I don't even want to speak like we're done, because we're not. We're not. We're still going to improve on these workflows and improve the back end of the APIs to bring more desired data as member customer requests come in. So relationship, constant improvement, which is kind of in the question itself, Bob. I'm like answering the question with words from the question, but that's really, not to be super feelings friendly, but the relationship's always the important part to me, that I could call Olivia and we could talk about it, make improvements, and go from there. And if we test it and we have something to take back and work on, I know Olivia will help me with that, and then our TC will help with that, and then we can move forward. So it's a great experience to get to work with you guys.
Well, thank you, Seth. Yeah, and I mean, I agree. I mean, Olivia and her team are on the front lines. They see day to day, where the processes could, or where the processes and interactions could be smoother, and where access to different things and capabilities can make them more efficient and make the customer experience better. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Yes,
that
and
relationship.
clean. Yeah,
And
efficient and clean, Bob. It's again as quick as possible. I can't harp on how near to real time I want to be, with the data communication between us.
I totally get that. I think that's another great thing for kind of a takeaway for the folks that are with us today to hear some of this. Yeah, no matter who you're using. I mean, obviously we're kind of focused in on these particular situations, but this stuff applies across the board. So
True, very true.
thank you. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, and we've already kind of touched on some of this, but let's delve a little bit more deeply on the real world impact of this, operational impact, outages, costs, etc. So Amber, going to kick things off with you for this part. I know you recently came over, so you're again not new to NISC, but new to this integration. When evaluating your options, I mean, how important was that integration between the technical support team, your backend system? Was the quality of that integration to your decision, and kind of what tangible impacts have you seen since?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So we made the decision to outsource our tier 1 support during COVID. We had an increase in customers, as I think a lot of providers did, and we wanted to provide 24/7 support because, well, people were going to school at different times and going to work at different times and all of that. So we made that decision, and we grabbed a provider. Well, as with any business, you're always looking to save money and create efficiencies and all of that. So we started looking around to try to find that. And we, one of our key things, one of our biggest things is they had to be 100% US based support. Like, that's a non-negotiable. We weren't interviewing any company that didn't provide that. So that was number one. And really high up on the list, but it could be negotiated, was that integration with NISC. As I mentioned previously, we've been in NISC house for 25 plus years, even before they were NISC. And so what we didn't want is for our folks to have to work in 2 separate systems, when they're having to follow up on a trouble ticket or whatever. We didn't want them to have to work in 2 separate systems. So it was quite important, almost as important as that US based tech support. So when we made the decision to leave that prior provider, we were looking at those 2 things, right? That US based support and that integration. One of the key things that we looked at in that integration too was the outage detection process. Like, what was that process going to look like? And also call reporting data. Our senior management team periodically looks at not just our business office call taking, those those call reporting metrics, but also what it looks like on the tech support side too. So having those reporting tools was important and being able to see those. But really for me, honestly, the integration is key. The integration was absolutely very important there. You had mentioned, Seth, that real time back and forth. I mean, that's been perfect. Like that's been great and very useful as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber. I appreciate that. Yeah, it sounds like it's you recognize the importance of it. So I thank you for sharing that. And kind of on the outage side of things, going over to Richard, can you talk about how the integrations kind of impacted your outage management and the escalations for your team?
Well, one of the things I'd like to share is that, where was this efficiency when we were more of a DSL shop? When we had more outages, we simply don't have the outages that we used to have, and I think that's probably true for every provider that's moved primarily over to fiber or has been fiber all along. So the efficiency is there where the technicians at NRTC, the leads, they can actually reach out to our local technicians much quicker. Amber mentioned earlier in the call here today about the visibility that they have, and they'll be able to see that it might be 5 people in this town are having an issue and 5 people in this town are having an issue, and the connectivity there between the possible outages is much more visible now than it used to be. And so they can make that connection. So the management of that outage is much better. We're also working with NRTC to include SMS messaging in outages and that sort of thing. So it's all tied together. It's all, where previously many systems were separate, lots of swivel chairing happening. And in an outage situation, that is time consuming and can be frustrating for the person that is in the middle of, getting yelled at by a customer, having a difficult time finding out exactly the scope of the issue. And so having it all in one system, a single pane of glass, if you will, has really been great. It's really worked out well for us. And, if they can get an IVR up earlier, the earlier the better. It prevents that flood of calls into the call center, that overwhelming, oh my gosh, from the technician standpoint of seeing, 30 calls waiting and knowing that it is just not going to end. And the people that they're going to talk to are not necessarily going to be happy people. So there's hopefully some morale boost there for the folks on the phones. But that internal awareness is really key. And having that coordination between the local office and the outside technicians that might have to report that outage to the leads so they know, incoming.
Right. Yeah. So it's more of that, it's that visibility, it's the communication between teams. Yeah. So, and also the recognition and the response time to get that IVR up, that can all have a huge impact, it sounds like. Good stuff. Amber, I think we've kind of sped through this, which is great. I don't want to take up too much time with the folks that are watching, but we are going to leave some time for questions. But I'm going to close out with you, Amber. Earlier, you shared a little bit about outage management and how that's changed, how the switch and kind of the integration that you have in place today has impacted outage management for your team since you switched. Can you go a little bit further on that and kind of talk about how that's impacted your team?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Richard mentioned, I mean, when you're working with that very small team, I mean, we're an incredibly small team. So when you have to, get that website notification up, get that social media notification up, when you have to, get the messenger notification out to the impacted customers, the sooner that you can be advised of something, the quicker that those outbound messages start happening. I mean, obviously, we've got the processes in place when we become aware that there's an outage, there's a cut cable here, there's some switching issue there. We've got those processes in place to reach out to NRTC and give their techs a heads up. But it's also great that works in reverse. I mean, we actually, we haven't been in an NRTC shop for very long, and we've actually had a couple of different examples where their techs have recognized that there's a potential outage because they've seen an uptick in calls. I think one of them might have been a TV issue and the other one might have been a switching issue, but they reached out to us proactively and said, hey, we're seeing this. What are your teams seeing? And lo and behold, yep, we were seeing it. Our IT staff just hadn't recognized it yet. And so we were able to get those notifications out quicker. Also, you know, in one of the cases, it warranted an IVR just because of the volume of customers who were impacted. And, you know, Richard talked about that whole IVR situation. You know, when you can proactively put out that IVR, and slow the incoming calls, because how many times does a customer call and all they want to know is it just me, or is it, you know, a whole bunch of people? Because they're, you know, for the most part, they're quite patient, and as long as it's not just them, you know, they can figure, oh, they can wait. So, you know, putting up that IVR so that the customers are met with that message when they call in, that gives them an ETR if we have one, that tells them that it's not just them. You know, that's also going to reduce the call handling time as well, right? Because that customer's not having to be told by a human, yep, we're aware of the outage. Yep, it doesn't affect just you. And yep, it's affecting this area, because they're already getting it before they ever would have reached the human. So, you know, a lot of times they're discontinuing the call. So that proactive, you know, NRTC teams recognizing this, you know, this is an issue. Let's get somebody on the horn. Let's figure this out. It has been instrumental just in the last few months that again, we've been with them. So, and then there was a recent Microsoft like nationwide issue, you know, and NRTC put up a global IVR that, you know, that all of our customers could hear ahead of that call, so that they realized, no, it's not just me again. You know, this is a bigger issue. You know, they recognized that was an issue before any of our folks did, because it wasn't our issue, right? Like it was impacting customers everywhere. It wasn't just impacting VTEL customers. So the fact that they have those systems in place as well was quite helpful, and really does improve the customer experience.
Great. Thanks, Amber. Yeah. I mean, it's just amazing, you know, what an impact it can really have, you know. And I know we've gone a little bit beyond the integration itself and talked a little bit about the processes, but it all comes down to the data that you can share and the capabilities your teams have, you know, the visibility, whether or not they need to swivel chair. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. So, all right. Well, we did go through that fairly quickly. But I really want to thank you all. Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives. Do any of you have anything you'd like to add before we kind of close things out here? We've got one last final poll question, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. Is there anything you would like to add before we move on?
Actually, I did want to add, I think Richard had mentioned the savings on the call handling time. I actually was just looking earlier this week. Our average hold time from recent months with the prior provider to NRTC, our average hold time decreased by 12 seconds. Not huge, but it's good, right? Any decrease is good. But our average call handling time decreased by over a minute from the prior provider to NRTC. So I think that's an incredible just proof that integration is a positive thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it all is interrelated. You know, the faster a technician can get off the phone, the more calls they can take, the shorter the hold time is. So that's fantastic to hear. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, Amber. I wasn't even aware of that. That's great. All right. Well, if there's nothing else that you'd like to share, I'm going to turn it back over to Dan. We have one final poll question, and then Dan's going to open it up to questions. So again, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it. I think this has been really enlightening, and thank you all for joining us here today and listening to it. Dan?
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, we got one more poll question we'll do. First, I'm going to remind you for the Q&A, the place to submit your questions is up in that top right corner. You're going to see a question mark inside of what looks like a screen. So go ahead and start submitting your questions through there, and we'll ask the panelists what questions you have. So, but with our final poll question of the day, after today's discussion, what's your biggest integration priority? So, prioritizing from this list, is it ticket lifecycle automation, agent workflow optimization, outage management improvements, evaluating your tech support or BSS, OSS partners, or is it something different that we maybe don't have here on this list? Maybe you've identified something else that you want to work on. So responses are still coming in, so we'll give you another minute or so here. And if you've already answered your this poll question, you can start submitting your questions. Okay, so our results here, 2 tied to 30%, the ticket lifecycle automation and the outage management improvements, okay? And then following just behind at 20%, we've got agent workflow optimization. And then down at 10%, we have evaluating your tech support or BSS, OSS partners. So, and then 10% others. So maybe we'll get a little color on what those items might be here in the Q&A. So we do have our first question in. Let's see here. What was the biggest onboarding challenge? And Amber, I'm going to pass that over to you since you're the one that has most recently had that onboarding experience.
Thanks, Dan. So I would say that our biggest onboarding challenge was the fact that our contract with our prior provider ended at 12/01 on December 1st, which if any of you are looking at a calendar, that's the Sunday night of Thanksgiving weekend. So I was very nervous when we first started talking about the transition of, okay, who are we going to have on staff on Thanksgiving weekend to actually help with this transition? And then what's that look like from the NRTC side? What's that look like from the NISC side? Like, how is that all going to sugar out? But I have to say that the transition process, number one, it began back in September with, it was managed by a project manager. There were certain goals and steps that were slated for every single week. We had a weekly call. There were certain goals and steps that were slated, and each person had action items for each week. So that transition process was very smooth, and we actually transitioned like the week before Thanksgiving, so we didn't have to worry about any of the Thanksgiving issues. That was one of the biggest obstacles. We did have a semi big obstacle. It was easily resolved, but we found in the process the query that we wrote. Well, we didn't write it. Olivia provided it. The query that we used to pull the information to FTP the data file, and I apologize. I'm speaking on technology terms that I don't fully. That's not my wheelhouse. But the query that I had to pull was pulling agreements to send that data file through, was missing a handful, probably, I don't know, 150 agreements that we have that didn't have products and services codes on them. And they're because they're part of multiple agreement accounts. But because those agreements didn't have products and services codes on them, they weren't flowing through the query. So the NRTC team wasn't seeing them. So we just had to add some $0 CNC codes to those agreements, and then they could see every single agreement that we had. So it was small, and it was easily resolved, but I never thought of it.
That's a good one. Thanks for sharing. And so you aren't necessarily recommending people choose their like favorite holiday to schedule their transitions for, right?
Well, no, but also if you have to, the NRTC team can work with you on it. Absolutely.
All right. Next question in here, Richard. I'm gonna give you the first shot at this one, and then we'll see if Amber has thoughts on this one too. How long did it take to realize ROI? So So you've talked probably a little bit about some of the different components that maybe lead towards a return on investment, but can you provide a little color on that, Richard?
Yeah, as far as the dollars and cents, I don't have the figures in front of me as far as call time and per minute charges that we've seen an improvement on. But just the idea that systems, previously the NRTC technicians, we've been with NRTC for quite a long time. And one of the key reasons I think that our leadership decided to go with NISC is because there was, a relationship there already. And so we've seen a return on an investment from the standpoint that the systems are talking to one another, whereas before the NRTC technicians would have to log into this system or that system, multiple different access points, which from a security standpoint is worrisome. If there's a new technician or a technician leaves or something like that, there's a lot of it, peace of mind return on investment there for us. So they have access to what we have access to, since now NISC does a lot of the administrative and provisioning work for us versus other systems. Well, the NRTC technicians can actually kick those off as well. So it's been a win there for sure. Training, that return, you spend a lot less on training when everyone's using a single system. It works out really well there for us.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And in some of those, it is hard to tie like a dollar value to something like the security improvement pieces too. So thanks for that, Richard. Amber, question for you. Same question for you. And I know you had mentioned when you were looking for technical support, newer technical support provider, that cost savings were a component. So can you answer that same question? And I don't know if you've seen savings as part of that.
I think we realized an ROI with the very first month. I mean, we're looking at about a $10,000 a month savings with this transition. So that's pretty big.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Looks like we got one here that I'm going to pass this one to Seth. So Seth, what should telco providers prepare internally before going through an integration? What are your recommendations?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what everybody should prepare, Amber mentioned it just a second ago, right, is data. Making sure that your data is clean as much as possible, and utilizing queries and other tools within your OSS BSS to make sure that you're in a good shape to get that all over to NRTC. The other thing that I think is very valuable to prepare is just the overall flow of your process. Talk about how your ticket process works today, and then discuss with NRTC how that could be improved, and planning. I've been through several, at the member I came from years ago, several meetings about workflow, and they're always good ones to have, and you can always find efficiencies. So I think those two are my favorite to pick on for if you want to get ready. Make sure your data is clean, and then make sure that you've got your flows understood and discussed internally. So.
Excellent. That makes a lot of sense. And we do have, it looks like a follow-up question. You kind of sparked something there on the data. And it's a question on how much time what's the appropriate amount of time to clean or prepare data for an integration? And this is probably different maybe for each of you based off your experiences on the level of cleanliness with the data before, or maybe the different steps you're kind of going through.
So, yeah, I'm gonna really try not to get too far into. I promise I won't say any database table names or field names. But that's the language I speak a lot. So, I think for this integration, for utilizing API, it's not much. it's not a lot of time. Again, I think that cleaning up your data for ticketing, I would look at, again, your billing codes and make sure that your codes align so that NRTC will know what services you're utilizing or your customers are utilizing. I think that making sure that your device inventory is really up to date. I am a bit of a cuckoo for inventory and accuracy of inventory. It's a whole other webinar. But yeah, I would make sure that you have your devices up to date so that, again, they're visible to NRTC when they're trying to assist you and your membership customer base. But the integration itself, I don't feel like it would take that much time at all. I would spend a week to just prepare for me internally and have some meetings internally, again, to get level set and see where you guys sit, and then from there engage in the project with NRTC, with us, if you're working with us in NRTC, and then we have our project managers that would come in and line it all out for you.
Excellent. That makes a lot of sense. Looks like we're caught up on our questions. We'll keep this open for just another minute. But we do have on here, if you are looking for some information, if you're an existing NRTC member, you can contact your member success manager. If you aren't working with NRTC yet, you can email getinfo@nrtc.coop. For more information from NISC, you can, if you're an existing NISC customer or member, you can contact your account manager. Or if you're new to them, you can email sales@nisc.coop. Bob, do you have any last thoughts that you wanted to cover here?
Well, I did have one kind of follow up while we were listening to that. That's
Sure.
Gonna, put a couple of our folks on the spot here, and hopefully I'm not catching you off guard with anything. But I know earlier we talked about how the evolution, and we should continue improving this over time. Do you have any thoughts on kind of what's next for this collaboration between NISC and NRTC? Where are you going in the future? Where do you see this going?
So right, well, we're actively moving on it right now, Bob. So we're working with NRTC and Olivia to get, to be concise, to get as much parity as possible from what we offer in the iView solution into the Connect solution. The solution needs are the same. Just because the OSS BSS application is a little different, the solution needs are still going to be there. So bringing everything over to Connect that we have in iView, so that when a member of ours moves from one application platform to another, it's seamless as far as their integration with NRTC and their ticketing is concerned.
Perfect. Thanks, Seth. I was curious about that. So that sounds like it'll be really impactful for a lot of our members.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to stay high level, and I won't get into all the little nuances and details of it, because we just do not have time for that here. So.
All right. No, that's all from my end. Just thank you all again. I really appreciated you spending the time and joining us and sharing all of your knowledge and information with us.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
all right. Well, thanks everyone. We will be sharing out a recording of the webinar from today. So look for an email later today. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.